Okay. So as we come to kind of a close for the day, we have one more very special talk, and I really want to turn this over directly to the patient experience. And then that's really what we've been talking about all day. This is really about the patients, obviously. And our final speaker today is Abbey Phillipson. Abbey is the founder of the Collagen Advocacy Network and head strength and conditioning coach at Adaptive Sports and Fitness at the University of Michigan. Through her work, Abbey has become a leading advocate for individuals living with rare and often under-recognized and undiagnosed connective tissue disorders, helping to raise awareness, build community, and push for greater recognition and care. She brings an essential patient voice to the rare types of hypermobility syndromes into this whole conversation, and we are just really honored to have her here today. So thank you, Abbey.
Look familiar.
While we're waiting, I wonder how many people are wondering why I'm using a headset. Am I about to give a musical performance? I'm not. I just didn't know if my head would be seen over this computer. Don't meet your heroes. They're shorter than what you saw on the internet. I could. Hi, everyone. If you are new to me, well, maybe you've seen me on Instagram, but I hope I've got some good stuff in store for you. So super excited to be chatting today, and I'm extremely thankful for the opportunity. But first, I want to say, what the heck? Because it was only 4 months ago that I started speaking out into what I thought was the abyss. But this room, you people, this is most certainly not the abyss. If you don't know me, and I wouldn't expect that you do unless maybe you've seen me stretch my skin on the internet, it's real. Ta-da! My name is Abbey Phillipson, and I am the founder of the Collagen Advocacy Network, which, as we like to call it, is a home for people with and parents of children with rare and ultra-rare forms of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. We aim to provide community, advocacy, and resources for people living with monogenic forms of the condition. And while I know that may sound really professional, I am not an expert in anything, really, at least not anything that pertains to why you're all here today. I, unlike virtually everyone you've heard from and will hear from, I don't have a doctorate. I don't have patients. You won't find me as an author on any genetic studies, although maybe the subject of one. I can't teach you any groundbreaking science today because I don't have it. But what I can do is bring real behind the word rare. And now the clinicians in this room have read about me and my friends. You've seen prevalence figures in textbooks. You can probably name the genes at play in our truly rare conditions. You can define some of the visible features. After all, you see 13 types on that EDS chart all the time. You know that we exist. But to be honest with you, you could dedicate your entire career to Ehlers-Danlos syndromes, and most of those 13 types you won't ever meet. Some of us are so rare, it's almost as if we aren't real. You may never get to know all that is Ehlers-Danlos syndromes unless you really, really tried. But recently, I really, really tried. I brought real to the word rare. And today I'd like to share our side of the story. We are real. We are lawyers, firefighters, kindergartners, Paralympians, aspiring astronauts, grandpas, veterans, princesses. These are voices you've never heard, faces you've never seen in a moment, probably perspectives you've never considered. We now have over 100 members, 129 as of this morning, across 6 continents, 13 countries, ages 18 months to 67 years old, all rare types represented. And I've recently been asked, how did you gather these people together in such a short amount of time? But to be honest with you, when we make up such a small percentage of the EDS patient community, there aren't many chances to speak up and be heard. And at Collagen Advocacy Network, we have 2 types of meetings. We have social meetings and we have advocacy meetings. I've seen maybe 30 of 100 members at social meetings compared to more than double that at advocacy meetings. You see, for us, the primary need wasn't community. It was a seat at the table, a microphone. I gave them a microphone. And with that, I developed a survey with my research colleague at the University of Michigan to ask our community the hard questions. Do you find that practitioners are familiar with HEDS, but not about your type? 97% answered yes. Have you ever received improper medical guidance due to the presumption that you had HEDS? 80% answered yes. Do you feel that current social media awareness of EDS has been harmful to people with rare types? 92% answered yes. Do you feel part of the EDS community? 5% answered yes. In your experience, have you found it to be more difficult to access resources pertaining to your type of EDS in the last 5 years? 80% answered yes. Are you satisfied with current research and education efforts toward rare types? 0% answered yes. And to be honest with you, as somebody with a rare type, I wasn't really surprised by these statistics. But what happened when we shared these statistics with the greater EDS community online? People were shocked. People questioned why and how we could possibly feel this way. But all that discourse did for me was prove that we really aren't listening closely enough to the rare community. Because the second you turn in, hand them that microphone, this perspective becomes loud. And not only loud, frankly, quite angry. And I think maybe rightfully so. And if I drove all the way here to have this once in a lifetime opportunity to have a microphone in my hand, I'll be damned if I don't make sure my community's voice is represented in every word that I say today. So let's do it. Let's have a hard conversation. Let's talk about why this perspective is so prominent, but why, even so, you've probably never heard it. Now, there's a statistic that I'm not putting up there because I don't want to lose you, and I need you. I need you here with us. If you've grown to like me over the last 5 minutes, I'm probably going to ruin it right now, but just sit tight. I might be able to bring it around in the end. We asked, do you feel that hypermobile EDS and the rare and ultra-rare types should continue to exist under the umbrella label Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome? 90% answered no. And I know that sounds scary and foreign and uncharted. It absolutely is. I want to invite you, especially my hypermobile friends in this room, to sit in that discomfort with me. I promise it's not comfortable for us either. Now, before I talk about why people with rare types want separation, I'm going to tell you what it's absolutely not about. What it's absolutely not about is hierarchy, suffering Olympics, saying one type is more valid than another. It is painfully clear that anybody with any type of EDS diagnosis is going through hell and back. I can't tell you whose hell is worse. I don't think we will ever be able to measure suffering. And if you need confirmation that's truly how I feel, just know that I know for a fact that I do not suffer the most in this room. My goal in speaking about separation is to make sure that nobody is lost in assumptions and overgeneralizations, and that we all have our needs and biology seen more clearly. Maybe we need separation not to divide us for the sake of hierarchy, but to improve everyone's pathways to proper care. I agree with the sentiment that we are stronger together. But being together so far has meant voices like mine are drowned out. So hear us today when we say that a diagnosis is supposed to protect a patient. It's supposed to define a lived experience, define pathways to proper care. But for folks with rare types, the name EDS has become a barrier to proper care because that label no longer means me and my friends. We asked our group to define the most troublesome features of their experience with their Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. And here's what we got. Number one, by a landslide, was severe skin tearing, scarring, bruising, and wound healing. Then we've got life-threatening vascular fragility or vascular event. I want to make an adjustment on 3 here. It's spinal deformity, not congenital. My apologies for the mistake on the slide there. Number 4, congenital skeletal deformity. And for number 5, tied was congenital hypotonia and severe dental fragility. So overwhelmingly to us, this is what EDS means. Here's what it didn't mean. Only 4 respondents selected POTS. Only 2 selected mast cell activation syndrome. Only 4 selected subluxations. And only 1 selected chronic fatigue syndrome. And now this isn't to say that people with rare types don't experience these comorbidities and symptoms. They can, and they absolutely do oftentimes, but it was not selected largely as one of their defining features of their experience. And now comparatively, a couple folks at Collagen Advocacy Network did a comprehensive EDS resource search, and here's what we got. The top EDS products: compression garments, salt packets and electrolytes, splints, heart rate and migraine trackers, pillows. We found over 50 EDS podcasts, over 950 episodes. 12 were about rare types, all lumped together in one episode about 13 types of us. The top 3 EDS infographics of 2025 was the POTS EDS MCAS triad, the top EDS comorbidities wheel, and things you didn't know were EDS chart, which we didn't either. We didn't know they were EDS either because we didn't have them. EDS clinics offered hypermobility-centered care, first and foremost, POTS-focused care, mast cell activation syndrome assessment and care, virtual diagnostic assessments, and GI-related referrals and support. And outside of hospital settings, independent clinics offered services that were oftentimes proved to be dangerous for people with rare and ultra-rare types: chiropractics, massage therapy, yoga, acupuncture. Average number of sessions outside of EDS Society sessions that are about EDS, conferences, seminars, 15 to 20 sessions. Average number of sessions about rare types, 1. PubMed estimates over 1,800 research studies that mention hypermobile EDS compared to less than 10 for 7 of the rare types. And I want to stay here for a second to draw an analogy, because up until painfully recently, women were not required to be included as part of research publications, and we are still cleaning up after that mess. The problem being, if you want to learn about the human population, but 90+% of your participants are men, did you learn about the human population or did you learn about men? I imagine a future, maybe a present, where the same is true for EDS. If we're trying to learn about EDS, but 90+% of the participants have HEDS, and most of the other types aren't included at all, did we learn about EDS or did we learn about HEDS? And I think it's important to pause here and say that Collagen Advocacy Network, all of us wholeheartedly believe that these resources are amazing for people with HEDS. This is what we've been fighting for: increased awareness, advocacy, education, research, resources. But we'd be lying if we said it wasn't disheartening to see how many people are willing to band together in pursuit for better for HEDS while the loudest advocates for us has been us. We all exist under the label EDS. So it seemingly looks like EDS is getting proper attention and resources, but that couldn't be farther from the truth for us. Functionally, words, labels are used to represent something, to elicit meaning. But we're seeing that the label EDS no longer serves to mean me, to define rare and ultra-rare experiences. Being together in this way is causing harm. Collagen Advocacy Network's biggest pushback has been stop trying to divide the community. We are better together. But are we? We are seeing what happens when we're together. If we're together, then clinics will continue to not provide meaningful resources for people with rare and ultra-rare types. If we're together, then communities will continue to have an entirely dominated HEDS perspective, leaving folks with rare types to feel even more isolated in their own community. If we're together, then every infographic that drops that little H will have more reposts than there are total people living with a rare type. What if separating benefits everybody? And if, as we've heard a lot these past couple of days, there is a biological mechanistic difference between HEDS and the monogenic types, we all, as patients, have a big problem on our hands. If I go to receive medical care and I'm treated as though I have a neuroimmune disorder or a mast cell activation disorder, I will receive improper care. But at the same time, someone with hypermobile EDS goes to receive medical care and they're treated as though they have a congenital collagen structural malformation, they will receive improper care. The strength of a patient's ability to advocate for themselves becomes largely a product of being able to understand the biological mechanism behind your own condition. So, what should we be together on? We can come together toward change. There are not enough of us with rare types, and definitely not enough of us in positions of influence and decision-making to wake up and effectively decide that change needs to happen. We need to be together on this. We don't have power in numbers. Change is coming. But this time, it has to be the right change. We have folks with life-threatening manifestations who are going to become collateral damage to not making moves that provide true, firm structural change. So many of us, HEDS, rare, ultra-rare types, we don't have time to waste. So assuming I have you with me again, what can you all do today to support us? You can take the apprehension and discomfort that you may be feeling right now and turn it into questions, into productive conversation, into curiosity. You can call attention to the terrifyingly limited patient representation for rare types in the spaces where these changes are happening. You can be louder in standing up to misinformation that leads to the further erasure of rare types. You can keep offering us a seat at the table. And what I think, best of all, you can keep handing us the microphone. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Having sat on more NIH study sections than I can remember, you're going to fund 8%, 10% of the grant applications that come. If you say this is a rare disease, you will not get funded. So, not to poke the skunk at all, but using the term rare disease, does that benefit you? And how do I convince my study section to invest taxpayers' money in your diseases without saying they're rare diseases? What is the benefit to investing in these? I don't want to say it only affects a small number of people. I want to say there's a larger gain in investing in studying rare.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I wish I had a better answer for you than what I'm about to give you. But my background is in linguistics. So where you probably sensed a lot of this conversation came from is that labels are very strong. They're very powerful. Words, definitions are supposed to elicit meaning, right? And I think we're seeing right now, and as we've heard from Laura Bloom's talk as well, is we really have nothing to lose, right? We're not getting funds. We have donors, there's donors supporting hypermobile EDS. That's not coming to us. Being attached to something that is getting proper attention and resources also isn't helping. So I hope that kind of answers where we're coming from, as maybe there's nothing to lose, right? Maybe it looks like we're getting support right now. We're at ground zero versus rip the Band-Aid off. We are at ground zero. And I hope you see us and we're an orphaned, perhaps somewhat of an orphaned condition. I don't have the background you have. I have no idea how funding NIH-wise comes, how that comes. So anybody who has a better answer than I do for that, but.
I've worked on NIH studies like 15 years. Well, we funded rare through NIH. I mean, Marfan syndrome, plenty of money has gone, about $80 million, $80 to $100 million just for Marfan. There are other rare diseases. I don't think you need to hide behind a label. I don't think you need to name something else. I think there are funding opportunities for NIH for rare work through all the different regulatory. So yes, most of the grants that come through NIH are not dealing with rare conditions, but it's not true that they aren't getting funded. They are. And it's too much of, Marfan is the perfect example, as well as Blue Teeth. They're getting funded at very high rates. Now, nobody's bidding grants on rare subtypes of EDS, so it's hard to know how they would do. But I mean, I'll be submitting a grant on a rare subtype, so I guess we'll see how that goes. So I just said that rare conditions are being funded through NIH.
We have time for one more, Lara.
Yeah, Abby, great talk. We have got to speak a few times, and at Society.
I can't.
I'll speak.
Where's the mic?
No. Well,
I can repeat it as well.
See the mic.
Here we go.
So at the Society, we are the Ehlers-Danlos Society after all. We're desperately trying to be a home for all types of EDS and HSD, and it's been really hard, and we've spoken about that. We've done summer camps just for the people with the monogenic types. We've done in-person events, we've done virtual events. We held a summer camp, we had close to 80 people register, and we flew speakers out there and 2 people turned up. And we spent almost 50,000 trying to make that happen. So we have been trying. Now, I know we've spoken about the fact that many of the 120-something people that have tapped into you aren't on social media. So we have body system pages for every type of EDS. We have resources. Everything that is published out there on these types is on our site. And yet I know we're still not doing enough. I know that because of the work you're having to do. So I'm asking you, what can we do more? And how do we reach those people so that when we do get the very rare amount of funding that we do have, that people turn up, that people come, that, if social media isn't the way to connect these people, what is? We've spoken before, the VEDS movement is there under Marfan. There's quite an active VEDS group, Annabelle's Challenge in the UK, and we work closely with them. The other monogenic types, other than classical, are so rare, there's a small handful. But where are the people with classical EDS like you? Like, they're not in the Marfan group, they're not with the society. So where are they and why aren't they coming to us? And I'm really grateful you've established that, because it's a bridge to those people. But I would love to find out more of what we can be doing, because we're not the HEADS Society. We are the EDS Society, and we want to be doing whatever we can. And just very quickly to touch on the rare, there's the Orphan Drug Act that does support funding for rare. I think it's really important, the rare, is it not type, the amount of misinformation I've put out there, I've seen it put out there, I have definitely not put out there, that say EDS isn't rare, and it's just awful. And it literally is one of the most frustrating things that is ever put out there, because it's so inaccurate. HEDS and HSD are not rare. The other types are. And I think with this new criteria update, if there is, some kind of update on where they live, and if it is part of EDS, that conversation as to what's rare and what's not, I think will serve both communities much better, because we're talking about a condition that is actually probably one of the most mis- and underdiagnosed conditions of our time. And the amount of potential funding and system support that could be there for that is huge. But we're also talking about a condition that could be, ultra rare and rare, that can benefit from discrete funding like Orphan Drug Act and like NIH funding that is there for rare. Let's apply to the appropriate people for the appropriate funding to get everyone what they need.
Yeah, so I guess I'll share just a touch of a personal story here. So when we talk about why larger organizations aren't able to create this community that we've been able to build for the HEDS and the HSD community, which I think is such an amazing community. When we talk about why that is, I think we might be asking the wrong question, or maybe looking at it from a backwards position. I remember getting my diagnosis as a child and trying to find community. And guess who I didn't meet? Anybody like me. Okay, so I do feel that the same topic that we're just talking about there, where we have, just by way of the numbers of the prevalence figures, period, end of story, we have a very common condition lumped with sometimes very, very, very rare. You accept very early on, especially because you're born with this condition, that you're not going to have community. I've met one singular person with pathogenic classical type, and they found me, right? So I don't think it's a question of, oh, we're trying to create community and nobody's coming. I feel like we sensed that the community wasn't really for us from a very young age. I remember being in a community group at 10 years old and telling my mom, I'm like, I don't have any of this. Like, are we sure I have this? I asked my mom, are we sure I have this? Because the experiences are not what I've lived with. And so to my point, for us at this point, because it's been a lifetime of, well, there is no community for me. I'm so dang rare. There's no community for me. That's not really what we're seeking. What we're seeking is, I said, hey, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to talk about the issues with ADAMTS2 gene specifically. And then guess who all flocked? All the folks with dermatosporaxis EDS. I've got parents of young children with it. I think it's 11 folks confirmed total. We have 7 of them in our group. People came flocking when they heard something very, very specific to them. If I said we're going to a summer camp, I don't think anyone would show up. But if I said, let's chat about what we've all been feeling for years, that we haven't had a place to say this, or at least a place where it's heard, people came. From 13 different countries, people came across all types. We're 8 weeks old.
Incredible. Can I just say, you're an incredible gift to this community.
Thank you.
And an incredible voice, and they're lucky to have you speaking on their behalf. And I look forward to working with you much closer to give your community what you deserve.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I know you have one thing. We have to wrap up, but hurry up, Sarah. I want to see Sarah.
Gift question. So what I'd like to know, on behalf of Courtney Gensimer texting me, what can the greater HEDS community, especially online, do to help support the rare genetically defined conditions?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, just try to understand us. I know that it sounds like, hey, wait, we're all in this together. It hasn't felt like that to us, right? We don't have that same like, rah, rah, let's fight together, because being together has harmed us, right? So that's not to say it's anybody with hypermobile EDS fault. Take yourself out of it. It has nothing to do with you or your diagnosis. I believe you. I hear you. Nothing to do with it. We are working in a system just by way of the prevalence, again, where your friends with rare types have not felt a part of the community. So try to take yourself and your diagnosis out of it and just hold our hand. Just listen to what we have to say. I think hopefully we had a lot more in common with what I just shared than what you may see online, when it seems like two sides against each other. We are all cogs on the same broken axle. So just hold our hands and listen. That's all.
And thank you so much, Abby. I can't. And just by the way, this was a wonderful day, but we have a whole day tomorrow. Abby is also going to be speaking a little bit tomorrow too. So more questions there if you have,
We'll
this
hang
is
out
us
for a bit.
continuing tomorrow. So I just want to take this moment to thank everybody here, all my colleagues, all the speakers, all the patients. This is huge. Dr. Knight, everybody online. And we are starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning here in Penn Hall, breakout rooms, and virtual as well. So have a good night. Thank you.